Welcome to the Michigan Man Podcast on Wolverine Sports Radio, a member of the V-Sporto Network, and in partnership with SB Nation's Maize and Brew, for Wolverine fans from coast to coast. Go Blue and welcome to the show. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. It's almost time to end the preseason chatter and get down to the business of playing some Michigan football. We've talked about the coming season for months now, and I think most of us have pretty much run out of things to say. Almost, that is. Today, Michigan great Greg Skrepenak joins us on game day with our final preview of the coming season. Next week, we get down to business with our Hawaii preview. On Tuesday, we'll get the Michigan perspective, and then on Thursday, we're scheduled to have Hawaii radio voice Bobby Curran join us to discuss another long road trip for what should be a road-weary team by the time they take the field in Ann Arbor. Hawaii opens the season in Australia this Saturday against Cal, flies back to Hawaii, then after a day's rest, boards a plane for Michigan. We'll talk more about that next week, though. Before Greg joins us, here are a few news and notes to get us started. The recruiting game is fickle when you're dealing with 17 and 18-year-old kids, this we all know. This week, Michigan four-star tackle Aubrey Solomon, who's from Georgia, decommitted on Monday. He's still going to visit, but wants more time. It seems he received a thank you for attending the barbecue at the Big House, but he never really came, and his first and last names were spelled wrong on the thank you note. So if that's the reason he decommitted, it sort of gives you an idea just how fragile the entire process is with these kids. Four-star defensive end Leonard Taylor from the Dayton area also decommitted on Monday. He stated he's still interested in Michigan, but wants to keep his options open. In other news, sophomore kicker Andrew David from Ohio announced he will be transferring to TCU. No reasons were given, but one could assume he sees the writing on the wall when it comes to his kicking future. Kenny Allen is on board for this his senior year, and Quinn Norton, considered one of the best in the country, is a true freshman. The announcement came from David on his Twitter account and has not been made official by Michigan. A reminder that time is running out this week to check out the new interactive sports app I've been telling you about the last few weeks. It comes to us from the same team that developed Madden Football and EA Sports College Basketball. It will be in Google Play and iTunes this football season. For more info or a sneak peek, email playitfirst@yahoo.com and include your cell number. That's playitfirst@yahoo.com, and don't forget your cell number. Greg Skrepenak is one of the all-time greats at Michigan. He was a two-time consensus first-team All-American tackle, captain his senior year, and spent many years in the NFL. He bleeds maize and blue. He joins me next on our Game Day segment here on the Michigan Man on Wolverine Sports Radio, a member of the V-Sporto Network and in partnership with SB Nation's Maize and Brew. With us here on our Game Day segment this week, as we have our final preview for the upcoming season. I know our listeners are probably saying, finally. Greg Skrepenak, Michigan great, joins us to talk about this upcoming season. Great to have you back, Greg.
Mike, great to be back. Great to be talking Michigan football again, and great that we're getting ready for another exciting season.
Yeah, we are, and I think every Michigan fan, former player, alum is just amped up and ready to tee it off against Hawaii. Greg, it's been a few years since there was this much optimism surrounding a season, isn't it?
Quite a bit. I think most true Michigan fans try to remain optimistic just because that's their approach, and unfortunately, we haven't met those expectations. And that's the other thing, too, at Michigan, is expectations are always high. And so with the expectations being high, there is usually that optimism, but when those expectations aren't met, you fall pretty hard. And so it's been a while since it's been this exciting in the preseason, although most Michigan fans are always excited for Michigan football. This year seems to be a little more exciting if that's a possibility.
Well, at this time of the year, usually we've read every magazine that we can possibly read. We're watching BTN caravan shows. I mean, you get to the point where you say, okay, enough, let's tee it up. Even the polls have been out. The AP poll came out over the weekend. And again, those are great for fans. But, since the playoffs started, those polls don't mean a heck of a lot, do they, Greg?
Well, preseason polls don't mean anything. Actually, most coaches probably would see them as a distraction because, someone, the players, their own players will look at those polls and either get, PO'd or, comfortable. And so coaches always want their teams to remain hungry. They always want their teams to know that they can improve week in and week out. They don't want them to become complacent. Reading too much about yourself with headlines, and good headlines isn't necessarily a good thing, nor is reading about yourself in a bad light always a good thing. So coaches really to see them as a distraction. It's their job to keep the team to have an even keel, and just move forward. But Jim Harbaugh, I think, is really a master at keeping his team focused, motivated, and getting them to buy into 1 week at a time.
Well, Greg, let's talk about this team. Haven't taken a snap yet. Expectations are high, as we say all the time, and they should be at Michigan. Along with those expectations, we start to nitpick at this time of the year. Where are we strong? Where do we have concerns? Your old position group, the offensive line, is probably that group that people have concerns about. For the most part, it's a veteran group. Do you expect to see, though, a big improvement up front this season?
I would hope so. I think so. I mean, as an offensive lineman, a former offensive lineman, you always look up front on both sides of the ball. That's what's going to dictate your tempo, your pace, and that's what's going to lead your team. But I don't see that as our weak spot. I see that as actually one of our strengths because of the experience. It's interesting that they're moving the left tackle Cole into center, which is a great testament to that kid's athletic ability and what he's been able to do. Because in essence, your left tackle may protect the blind spot of most quarterbacks being right-handed, but your center truly is the quarterback of the offensive line because of all the calls he has to make and then how he has to keep everyone on the same page. So that's an interesting move, but there's a lot of experience up front, and I would expect to see vast improvement and really the offensive line to be a group that leads this team.
And we know that Mason Cole, that's who you're talking about, was moved from left tackle after 2 years over to that center position, which I always wonder about because that is such an important position. Talk a bit, Greg, about the adjustment in the way you think and play the game at that position as opposed to left tackle.
The first and foremost is everything is on you quicker. Left tackle and both tackle positions for that matter, you're more on an island. You're on the edge. You're dealing with the fastest defensive linemen on the opposing team, the fastest outside linebackers, and even occasional blitz from your cornerback or your safety. So you're kind of on an island. In the inside positions, especially at center, it's immediately on you. You're right there. You're confined. You're right there in a box. And the first and foremost, the most important thing is the center quarterback exchange. You got to get that ball cleanly to the quarterback where he can take it, and that's where it all starts. So that center, getting that ball to that quarterback amidst all this confusion and this mass of humanity in the middle is a big change, and that's probably the biggest change. But at the same time, you also are now covered with two big guys on each side, which you will work with on a play-by-play basis. You're going to usually get help, from the right guard, your left guard. So that's kind of a nice place to be when you have all that help, as to compare to where you're pretty much one-on-one on the edges. But the other thing is that becomes very important is she has to be able to identify who the offensive line is going to block. You got 5 offensive linemen, with tight end 6, fullback 7, and so those guys up front need to know who the offensive linemen are going to block. Generally speaking, the big guys block big guys. But in today's game and today's defense, it becomes very increasingly more difficult to identify those big guys because now you have these hybrid defensive linemen who not only could go down in the three-point stance, but also could drop back and play linebacker. So you have to identify the greatest threat and get your big guys, which are your best blockers, on the biggest threat that the defense is going to pose. And that's what he has to do. That's what he's going to have to do on a play-by-play basis, and that's why his experience with the left tackle will help him because he understands, how to play on the edge, so he's going to understand how to communicate with tackles. But it's going to probably take him a little bit of an adjustment just to get used to being in those confined spaces. But obviously the coaching staff is very high on him. He's definitely a good enough athlete, and he certainly is an intelligent kid if they're even putting him in that position because he has to be. So I think it'll be a pretty good transition for him, although it has to be a little bit of a learning curve simply because he's moving from, being on that island, like I said, to the inside, which is very crowded.
Well, sticking with this offense for just a couple of minutes, Greg, the receiving core is solid. We have Butt, Chesson, Darbo. The backfield is deep. We have Smith, Isaac, Drake Johnson. We don't know who else is competing and maybe moving up in that backfield. Now we have to see who lines up under center, and that is going to be very interesting in the next week and a half to see who comes out of that battle.
That's the big question mark. The exciting news is Jim Harbaugh took a quarterback who was at the University of Iowa who lost his job, transferred, and made him one of the best quarterbacks in the Big Ten. That's the exciting news. Now, the question mark becomes, who's that going to be? Jim Harbaugh has a track record of turning, making in good quarterbacks. You give him some talent now, and let's see what happens. But who's that going to be? There's all kind of question marks out there. There's guys who've had chances in the past. There's guys that are going to be brand new. So if you ask me, the big question mark will always be, if you don't have an experienced quarterback, who's going to be your quarterback? Outside of the offensive line, if that is a question mark, which I don't think it is, that's the biggest one, who's going to lead the team. Because the way I see it offensively, Jim Harbaugh has made an emphasis on tight ends and fullbacks. So I think we're pretty deep in those positions. And the other thing too, Mike, is who's going to come out as the top runners.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know there's people that we like back there. I know there's guys with some experience, but there still has not identified that top Michigan running like we've always had. We've always had one guy that stood above the rest. Is that going to be identified this year too? But they will always go back to the quarterback, because as good as our receiving core is, and we think we have a pretty good one, could the quarterback get him the ball? And that's the big question mark right now. But I'm very confident that Coach Harbaugh will find his man, and that man will be very well. He'll be very ready, game one against Hawaii.
Well, last week at his Monday presser a week ago, Jim said in his days as a college coach and even in the NFL, he's never had three quarterbacks who have competed this well, competed this hard, and improved like these three. And he included Shane Morris in that group, who a lot of people have written off as being in the battle since spring. Very interesting, Greg. Do you see Jim Harbaugh as the kind of a coach, and being the great quarterback he was, is he the kind of guy that might go with two quarterbacks earlier in the season? Or is he the kind of coach that says, no, I want one guy?
Well, I think if you look at his pro experience, especially at San Francisco when Smith was out there with Kaepernick, he went with Kaepernick. He went with one guy. Now, I think that's the right way to do it. I think there needs to be a continuity, especially at quarterback. Guys cannot get used to it. His teammates around him cannot get used to a platoon quarterback system. And I did play in a platoon system at Michigan when Michael Taylor and Demetrius Brown were our quarterbacks. And one was more of an option guy, the other was a pure passer with a gun of an arm. Then it ended up where one of them got hurt, the other one took over, then he got hurt, and then Nova Skrepenak actually came in. So I mean, it's kind of it's not an excuse, but I think you really want that one quarterback. I think it's unfair to write off Shane Morris. He's had some shots in the past, and of course we all know from the concussion problem and this and that. But I think that's what Coach Harbaugh has done well with this team from the very opening day when he got there. He's created the competition, and he created it not only the competition in itself, but he brought this attitude on how a privilege it is to be able to work and to work hard, and the kids have bought into that. And so you should have competition at every position. And that's exactly what you want if you're the University of Michigan, or any football team for that matter, and any sports team. You want that competition because that means your starters have to remain sharp, and that means your backups will be ready to play, when if need be and called upon.
With us on our game day segment this week as we continue our previews. Actually, this is our last preview leading up to the Hawaii kickoff in the opener. Is Michigan great Greg Skrepenak. Greg, on defense, we are loaded up and deep, especially in the trenches, which is always nice. Can you remember a season, Greg, when we had this much talent and depth that we can roll out on that defensive line?
I can't remember a season with so many of them. I mean, I know we've had, maybe we went one deep and maybe a couple backups, but I mean, these guys can just just they get one guy in, one guy, because we lost a couple decent linemen from last year's team, and then boom, they just replaced them. And it reminds me a little bit of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Pittsburgh Steelers for years had one of their best defense, and then they lose 3 or 4 guys, and yet the next year they were better. And you're thinking to yourself, how the heck did this happen? So it's really a nice problem to have. And we did actually get a little hurt last year from some injuries on the defensive line side of the ball, which towards the end of the year cost us a little bit. And so it's a nice problem to have, that depth and that talent and defensive line. Because, Mike, as much as you could stress the other positions and much as they're the ones that get all the highlight, again, and I know I say it all the time, up front will always dictate what happens. And maybe defensive linemen don't make the plays, but Jabril Peppers better hope they, give the opportunity to make big plays. And that's not what you don't see that in the box score. You don't see that anywhere on the highlights. But defensive linemen allow the linebackers to make plays. And that's exactly how defenses are designed. It's since the beginning of football, the defensive linemen are there to keep people off the linebackers, and with Jabril going, outside linebacker this year, what I think a good defensive line is only going to make him better.
Well, when you look at that defensive line, Greg, before any of the freshmen got in here, you thought, well, we're deep and we're talented without those guys. Of course, Rashawn Gary, everyone wants to see Rashawn get on the field. But Michael Onwenu, another just huge freshman out of Detroit Cass Tech, is making noise in camp. At Jim's Monday presser last week, he talked about just how impressed he was with Michael Onwenu. So you add 2 freshmen to that depth. I liked what the Wolverine preseason magazine said. They said the Michigan defensive line is like a hockey team. You can just keep rolling lines out there. And as you said, it's never, ever a bad thing to be that deep, is it?
Not a defensive line, because first of all, you want to put 2 in them anyway, because it's a very demanding position. It's a position that's going to wear you out. And with what offenses do now, with going quick and no huddle and going to the line of scrimmage so fast, you want to keep guys fresh. Now, you might not be able to rotate them during series, but you could flip them during series, which will keep them even fresher. So, yeah, it's a great problem to have. And again, let's go back to that competition thing, because this is where Jim Harbaugh has done a fine job, but give credit to these upperclassmen. Give credit to the guys who have, put in the time, and now these young bucks come in and are following the lead. So maybe these freshmen in other programs wouldn't develop so fast, but they come in, they buy in, and guess what? Now they're starting to be played in the mix, because one thing, Mike, that has changed in football, the freshmen now play immediately. Over the last 10, 15 years, freshmen play immediately. Very rarely do you see some of these blue chip guys and these high recruits come in and not play and be redshirt. Very rare anymore, because in my day when I played, that was the norm. And so up until about 10, 15 years ago, that's not been the norm. Freshmen play, and they play fast because they're needed to play. And so it's great to see them coming into the system, buying in, and it's a testament not only to Coach Harbaugh and his staff, but I think it's more of a testament to the upperclassmen and the senior leadership on that team, because people are buying in. And from my point of view, that's what's exciting. All the stuff that's happening is exciting, but what's really encouraging is seeing that. And when you have guys that could go to the NFL and come back, Lewis could have went to the NFL and been drafted, but he comes back. I mean, what more do you need? You got guys like Jabril Peppers changing positions, to really whatever the team needs. That's impressive, and that's what guys see. And I'm telling you, that's exciting. It's just encouraging and exciting.
Well, as you mentioned, Jabril Peppers playing that Sam linebacker in Don Brown's defense. I'm not sure exactly what that means, but I can't wait to see. But if there's a position group that people maybe have a little worry about, it's that linebacking core. It's I wouldn't say inexperienced. Ben Gedeon is stepping up as a starter. Don Brown said he's going to be inside and has to be vocal. He has to set that defense. No question. Jim Harbaugh referred to him all spring as a stud. And then you've got Mike McCray, who's ready to step in at another inside linebacker spot. Those guys seem like they're ready to step up. They are talented kids.
They are the question mark on defense because our secondary solid, and we just talked about our defensive line. So let's talk a little bit about Don Brown. What a hire that was.
Yeah.
I mean, we lose a great defensive coordinator to the University of Maryland, and I wish him nothing but the best. But we get Don Brown, who had the Boston College has the number one defense in the country. Now, the exciting thing is I don't think Boston College had the talent last year that we have this year, in spite of not really having that question mark at the linebacker position. But like I said, when you have that talent up front that we do and that depth up front, now linebackers actually, it'll be easier for them to fill in and get that experience if they lack it, or get that continuity that they need. And they have a natural leader in Jabril Peppers. I mean, it's going to be exciting to see exactly what he could do at that linebacker position, and it's neat for me to watch outside up front. He's not going to be an offensive or defensive lineman. So that man could play any position on the field, and it's exciting because he's fast, he's quick, and he's big and physical. I mean, he's exactly everything you want in a football player. So to be able to go, from a shutdown corner to a linebacker, to take on the big boys, it's pretty impressive. And then, of course, he's played some offense as well, and of course he returns on the specialty teams as well. So, but again, I'm going to emphasize this. Now you have a great defensive coordinator coming in who led the number one defense in the country last year with arguably more talent, and especially up front in the secondary. And then we'll see what happens. So that's the exciting thing that I see from that side of the ball. And yeah, the only question mark, Mike, is that these guys haven't had those earmark games. They haven't had maybe the experience that we'd like them to have. But that's the neat thing about college football too. New guys come in, and we're able to see what they're doing. And if you just take a look at what the last year has done, you see, and you say to yourself, okay, the logical thing is to say these guys will now grow. And, as I said before, with all this senior leadership, I'm not so concerned about the defensive side of the ball. I would be a little bit more concerned just to see where the quarterback is going to go than I am with the linebacker.
Well, you're right. We've seen what Don Brown has done, not only at Boston, but prior to that with a lot less talent than he's going to have this year. And his reputation is that he's a very aggressive kind of a defensive coordinator. Just think of these cover corners we have in Channing Stribling and Jordan Lewis, who can play press coverage and just get up there on a team's best receivers, which really opens it up for that defensive line and linebacking core, doesn't it?
Well, absolutely. If your corners are shutdown corners and you could play that man-to-man defense or man-to-man coverage, that opens up the defense to do anything you could do. Now, again, if you think what I was saying before about with Cole being the center and having to identify those five most dangerous guys are the big guys, the guys that they think are the greatest threat and the best pass rushers, or the best run run stoppers. When you have those corners, right there to shut, the two receiving threats down, now those other 9 guys could basically do so much more. And now offensive lines will not be able to identify those most dangerous men or those big guys, which they have to block, because they simply don't know what's going to happen. Now, if you don't have that ability to have those shutdown corners, then you got to drop inside guys outside for protecting them, and usually being in zone coverage, which softens the defense. I mean, that's naturally going to soften the defense because of men are coming out from the inside and going to the outside. So with those corners, you have so many more options. You strike the fear in an opposing team's offense on a play-by-play basis because they don't know where it's going to come from. And with the aggression of our defensive coordinator, I'm telling you, it's going to cause headaches for opposing teams. And that's exactly what defensive footballs do. And defensive football is also the zone blitzing. Again, and that plays into confusing offensive lines and offensive quarterbacks to buy in one look, and then they completely change it to another, and then the advantage goes defensively. So, Mike, the good news is you probably at this point in the game want your defense to be a little ahead of your offense, which I believe it is right now. And then as the team goes on, you know what? They've always said this age-old adage, about, okay, offense could win games, but defense wins championships. And unfortunately, as an offensive player, as much as I might hate to say this, that holds true most of the time.
Jabril Peppers, he's going to play both ways again this year, and Coach Harbaugh has given Jordan Lewis now the green light to play on both sides of the ball. Do you like that idea of using your best players on both offense and defense and just getting them on the field as much as possible?
Personally, I love it. Absolutely. I love it. And the reason I love it is because they want to be on the field. You want your best players on the field regardless. You want your athletes and playmakers on the field. And that excites the rest of the team, too. I mean, again, Jordan Lewis, a kid who could have went pro, who had a great year last year, who decided to come back. And that's in itself a testament not only to Coach Harbaugh and his staff, but the University of Michigan and how special a place it is, because he turned down millions of dollars possibly to come back and play for the University of Michigan, because that's what he loves to do. I mean, think about that, Mike. Just think about it, because most other programs, most other kids, they're gone. They're gone. There's been a lot of guys like Jordan Lewis that came back when they could have been gone. And it shows you how special the University of Michigan is. And then, along with Jabril Peppers, I mean, it just, you see how contagious, winning and competing is? And this is where Harbaugh becomes, this is, maybe I should say this is where his genius is, because he got these kids to buy in, and now they want more time on the field. What coach doesn't want that? What coach doesn't want his best athletes to just beg for time on any side of the ball? You know what I mean? That's a great problem to have. And you don't see it often. You just don't. But I think we're fortunate. Yeah, and I'm one of those guys that believe you get your best athletes the ball and things could happen. Regardless. Of course, you don't want to wear them down. You don't want to wear them too much, because we have enough talent on the other side of the ball as well. But imagine now that you're a defensive coordinator and you got Jordan Lewis and Jabril Peppers lining up, who two are the fastest guys on the team. What do you do? What do you do? At the very least, they could be used as a decoy, because they have to be given a lot of attention, at the very least, which again softens up the defense and allows you to do other things. But the possibilities remain endless, and I like it. And again, I don't think they need to, they need to be there a lot. I do believe we have a lot of talent on the offensive side of the ball, but it keeps other opposing coaches guessing, and it makes it more exciting for the fans. Come on, we all want to see these big athletes, do their thing. I do. I mean, it's just one of those things. We want to see these guys do their thing, and you know what? So let them do it.
Everyone, Michigan fans, national media types, expect Michigan to, of course, compete for the Big Ten title. And there's even a lot of chatter about the playoffs, which is, way too early. The thing I look at, though, is when the first 5 are at home, that's great. You open the Big Ten season with Penn State and Wisconsin at home. But those 3 road games against Iowa, Michigan State, and, of course, the finale in Columbus, they loom large. And it's a challenge just any year to win on the road in those 3 places, isn't it?
Oh, there's no doubt about it. And, Michigan's Achilles heel over the last 10 years is the inability to win on the road. And so it's certainly going to be a great challenge. And, by the way, the 3 best teams they play this year are Iowa, Michigan State, and Ohio State, all on the road. But there's a little bit, with the chemistry of this team and what Jim Harbaugh has reinstilled in this team. And I know when I played, and I know Coach Harbaugh when he played as well, it was we treated it not only as a business trip, but it was exciting to go on the road to an opposing team's home stadium and beat them with the 60 or 70 guys that you take, whatever NCAA regulations allow you to take now, with a little group of teams going into this hostile environment against your rivals and these good teams, and you go out and you compete and you win. There's nothing like that. You want to be home as much as you can, and it's nice, and it's the fanfare and all that stuff, but there's something to be said about going on the road and going into that hostile environment and competing on that level, which is a small group of guys with, a small group of fans there. And it's really, it's just gets the competitive juices even flowing more. And so it is a great challenge. I wish we had one of those games at home. It would be nice, but it's just the way the schedule is this year and the way the teams are. Not to say that the other teams we play aren't good. It just happens to be that Iowa and Michigan State played for the Big Ten championship, and either team could have won it. And Ohio State's been one, among the the elite, not only in the Big Ten but in the country over the last several years. So listen, you want to be the best, you got to beat the best, and sometimes that means you have to do it on the road. And so I'm sure Coach Harbaugh and his team says, bring it on. We'll do it one game at a time and bring it on. We'll play you in a parking lot if you want us to play you, wherever. And that's the attitude that these guys are going to have. So let's get it on, Mike. Let's get it on.
Well, we only have a week and a half to wait, Greg, and by the next time we have you back on the show during the season, we'll have a better idea of exactly what kind of a team Coach Harbaugh has developed. So, as always, my listeners love hearing from you. Our guest today has been Michigan great Greg Skrepenak. And Greg, thank you so much for your time. As always, you're a great guest, and we'll get you back on during the season, and I'm sure it will be interesting.
Well, Mike, thanks again for having me. As I said before, I could talk Michigan football all day, any day. And for the fans out there, you know what? From the bottom of my heart, when I played at the university, thanks for all your support. And even to this day, when I go back, people recognize me and always say hello. If you do see me out there, because I should be there for several games, feel free to come up, say hello, talk Michigan football, and just whatever else. And then also, hope to see you at the game and support our guys. It's going to be exciting, and as always, go blue.
Thanks to Michigan great Greg Skrepenak for joining me today. He'll be back with us during the season. Wolverine Quick Hits is next as we wrap it up for another week here on The Michigan Man on Wolverine Sports Radio, a member of the V Sporto Network, and in partnership with SB Nation's Maize and Brew. On Quick Hits today, next week it's time to tape our ankles and get ready for some Michigan football. It's been another very quiet training camp from a news perspective, but that's okay. Next week it will change. On Tuesday we'll air our Michigan Game Day edition, and then on Thursday Hawaii radio play-by-play voice Bobby Curran will bring us his perspective on another long road trip for Hawaii. So take it easy this week, because next week we put on our game face right here on The Michigan Man. Like us on Facebook at The Michigan Man Podcast and follow us on Twitter at The Michigan Man. Our free show app is available from both Google Play and the iTunes Store. If you don't have one of those apps, make sure you download one of them before the season starts. We also joined the team at iHeartRadio this season, so it's never been easier to hear the show wherever you go during the coming season. A reminder again, the time is running out this week to check out the new interactive sports app that I've been telling you about the last few weeks. It comes to us from the same team that developed Madden Football and EA Sports College Basketball. It will be in Google Play and iTunes this season. For more info or a sneak peek, email playitfirst@yahoo.com and include your cell number. That's playitfirst@yahoo.com, and don't forget your cell number. That will do it for this week's show. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. The time for talk is nearly done. Next week, we tee it up for real in the big house, and I can't wait. Until then, have a great Wolverine week, everyone. We'll see you back here next week with our preview shows. Take care, and as always, go Blue. Thanks for joining us today on The Michigan Man, here on Wolverine Sports Radio, a member of the V Sporto Network, and in partnership with SB Nation's Maize and Brew. Our listener lines are open 24/7 for your calls at 313-263-4842. That's 313-263-4842. Or email us at themichiganmanpodcast@yahoo.com. That's themichiganmanpodcast@yahoo.com. The Michigan Man Podcast is produced at the studios of Robin Lynn Productions, Allen Park, Michigan, and is not affiliated with the University of Michigan. Go Blue!